It's time for Data Point, and the Central Bank of Kenya, of course, releases a bulletin every other Friday. Now, based on the latest numbers, I want us to reflect on what has been happening to the state of the economy in the country. And first of all, we're talking about the Forex Reserve, which you will see that in March 2023, which is nearly 2 years ago, actually it is 2 years ago, the country had Forex reserves of $6.5 billion in terms of reserves. That's an import cover of just 3.6 months. The requirement in the country is to have 4 months, at least 4 months of import cover, meaning that these are dollars that are sufficient to import the country's demands from outside the country, obviously. In March 2024, that improved slightly to $7 billion, which is equivalent to 3.7 months. But now in 2025, that has gone up to $10 billion, equivalent to 5.1 months in March 2025. This, again, is the highest it has been in a very long time. Let's focus on the next one, which talks about what has been happening to the exchange rates. And you're looking at one of the major currencies, the Kenya shilling against the dollar. In March 2023, the exchange rate was 130 shillings and 99 cents to the dollar. A year later, which is in March 2024, it was at 133.07 shillings. It is now slightly lower at 129.38 shillings. But you recall that there is a time in this country that the exchange rate was nearly 160 and sometimes even higher. Let's talk about the treasury bills. These are the short-term borrowing that the government will do to sort out some of its cash flow challenges or needs. The interest rates have been moving. In March 2023, which is 2 years ago, the treasury bills, so the color in looks like blue, could be turquoise blue, that is 91-day treasury bill. It was 9.8% in March 2023. March 2024, which is a year ago, was at 16.7%. It has now gone down to 8.8%. You can see that's almost half of what it was a year ago. If you have to look at the 182-day treasury bill, it was 10.3% in March 2023, went up to 16.9% in March 2024, and now it's down to 9% for the 364-day treasury bill, from 10.7 to 16.9 a year ago to now 10.4%. You can see clearly that they have been going down in some of the policies that have come from the Central Bank of Kenya, from that monetary policy committee that has been working on different factors. Let's take a look at the next slide, which will explain what exactly has been happening. Again, the interest rates for treasury bills, the 91-day, you'll see in June 2024, which was, you recall, there was that eventful month in this country during the Gen Z movement and the protests. The treasury bill was trading at 15.9%, then went down in 6 months, that is December 2024, 9.8%. Thus, this time, some policies were changing at the National Treasury. Remember, it is also the same time, it was perhaps the 3rd month of the tenure of John Mbadi as the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury. So things were moving. 9.8% in December 2024, went down to 9.5% in January 2025. Last month it was 8.9%, and it's now at 8.8%. You don't know how far it can go as it continues to go down, but also this means bad news for investors who invest in some of these treasury bills. Let's take a look at the next one, which will help us look at the central bank rate, which is also determined by the Central Bank of Kenya's Monetary Policy Committee, which meets every 2 months. The central bank rate has been changing. This is sort of the baseline where banks have to use as they set their interest rates as they go ahead to lend money or credit to different customers. So in March 2024, the CBR rate, or central bank rate, was at 13%, stayed at 13% in June 2024, started going down in August 2024 to 12.75%. It has now gone down to 10.75% in February 2025, which is a record low considering what has been happening the past few years. But at the same time, the lending rate with the commercial banks, the average, these are figures according to the Central Bank of Kenya, which regulates the commercial banks, the lending rate has also been moving from 15.9% in March 2024, went up to 16.6% in October 2024, the highest during that period, but now is going down to 15.1%. But if you have to look at the change, it is not matching the drop that you have also witnessed. Of course, there's been a conversation between the Central Bank of Kenya and the commercial banks banks on why they are not effecting some of these benefits that are coming to the market. At the same time, September 2022, the average lending rate for banks was 12.4%. So if you had to compare that against what we have now, so September is crucial because this is when President William Ruto ascended to the office of president. We are still not there yet because at 15.1%, it is some 3 percentage points higher than 12.4%. But also at the time, you're talking about this central bank rate of 10.75%. Let's take a look at the next one, which will help us now look at the public debt. Of course, when the rates are moving, it also affects the public debt, the amount of interest that the country has to pay for borrowing from the Kenyan market. So the domestic debt has been going up. Initially, it used to be 49% of the total public debt. It has now gone up to 53.7%. In absolute terms, it is 5.8 trillion shillings. The external debt proportionately has been going down from about 51% to now 46.3%, and the absolute terms is 5 trillion shillings. The total public debt as of last Friday, according to the Central Bank of Kenya, is 10.9 trillion Kenya shillings. What does this mean? If you have to look at the next slide, yes, that will tell us about who owns this domestic debt. So Treasury bills, what I just described, the 91-day, 182-day, and 364-day Treasury bills account for 896 billion shillings. I'll be telling you who are the holders of this. Treasury bonds also, of course, from different markets, both locally and externally. We're talking about 5 trillion shillings. It is domestic debt, yes, but investors could be coming from different parts of the world. The Central Bank of Kenya overdraft, we're talking about 79.8 billion shillings. This is the amount of money that will be borrowed from the central bank to sort out some of the needs of the government. Then other sources, 98.9 billion shillings to give a total of 6.1 trillion shillings. So you see the difference between the figure that I just showed you earlier on, because this now incorporates the overdraft and other borrowing from the market. Let's take a look at something else. And this is to do with the investors. So banks control up to 45.3% of the domestic debt. So remember the 5.9 trillion debt. So banks, commercial banks, control 45.3%. It explains why there's a bit of profit that has been reported by major commercial banks in the country. Pension funds account for 28.4% of this borrowing. Insurance companies, 7.2%. Parastatals, these are government institutions that lend to the government to finance government operations. You're talking about 6%. Others, who include you and I, or individuals that may want to invest in treasury bills and bonds, we are talking about just about 13%. So much of the rest comes from corporate institutions, financial institutions, as well as the pension funds in the country. Now, the impact of all this, there's a bit of reality that we witness at the moment. Despite the interest rates coming down, businesses are being auctioned. You may have seen in the daily several businesses being advertised there. Businesses are closing or scaling down in terms of their members of staff and also the products offering that they have. There has been stagnating salaries reported by institutions like the Federation of Kenyan Employers, and also we know of jobless youth that continue to complain each and every day. And of course, struggling households. This is the reality versus what is happening to the economy at a time they're also reporting a better way of managing the forex reserves. That's data point for this week.